Here is your independent practice page for measurement and data for 8.7. If you read through the lesson, it has you do an activity where you try and check your reaction time for catching a ruler. So up here is where we're supposed to put our data measurements. So I am just going to make up a few here. So let's say I caught one at 1 1/2 inches, 1 3/4 inches, 2 inches, 2 inches again, 2 1/8 inch, 3 inches, 2 1/8, 2 5/8, 3 2 1/2. So I think I've done 10 points here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And when you're looking at this information, it's kind of hard to collect all of your data and to be able to answer these questions down below. So on number 2, we're going to create a line plot. There's two parts when you're labeling a line plot. The top label is what you are measuring here. So what we are measuring here is the ruler drop reaction time. And then down below here, we're going to write what unit we're measuring. And we were measuring this in terms of inches. So we can see that this is a continuous number line, meaning that numbers are going on infinitely this way and infinitely this way. So I can even start my number line at the number 1. And my largest number, I think, is 3. So I'm going to have it be 3 with 2 in the middle. The problem is when I look up here, I can see that some of my denominators aren't the same. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of create just a table here with some equivalent fractions. So the highest number of my denominator is 8. So I'm going to convert them all to be in terms of 8s. So I know that 1 1/2 is also equal to 1 4/8. Because if I multiply the top and the bottom denominator or numbers both by 4, that will give me the denominator of 8. So if I have 1 3/4 and I want it in terms of 8, I'm going to multiply this top and bottom both by the number 2. So this would be 1 6/8. 2 doesn't have a fraction with it, so I'm just going to leave it as 2 and 2 and 2 1/8. We already have it in 8, so that's an easy fix there. 3, 2 1/8 again, 2 5/8. 8s, we're good. We don't need to get a common denominator. 3, and then our 2 1/2 again. So 2 1/2 in terms of 8s. If I multiply the top and the bottom both by 4, that will give me in terms of 8s, so 2 4/8. So these bottom numbers right here and the top numbers up here are equivalent. I'm only going to plot these numbers down below here because essentially they're the same thing. So between my 1 and 2, I need to split it into 8s. So this is 1 1/8, 2 8s, 3 8s, 4 8s, 5 8s, 6 8s, 7 8s, and then that would be the 8 8s. So 2 1/8, 2 8s, 3 8s, 4 8s, 5 8s, 6 8s, 7 8s, and the 8 8s. So I'm just going to go through, and a few things as I am plotting my data is I want to make sure that my first line, my first mark are all the same size and on the same level, and I'll show you what that means as I go along. So 1 4/8, so this is 1 8, 2 8s, 3 8s, 4 8s. I'm going to come over here and mark this so I don't forget what this is. So all of my dots are going to be about this size and about this high up from the bottom line. 1 6/8 is going to be right here. Once again, I'm going to try and get my dot to be about the same size and about the same height. Then I'm going to do my next mark, and I like to do a little check underneath it so I remember which ones I've marked off. I have 2 marks at number 2. And then I have 2 1/8, which is going to be this location right here. And I mark this off. I have a number at 3 that I'm going to mark here and cross that off. I have another one at 2 1/8. And do you see how I try to keep them about the same height? And I got to mark that off. And then 2 5/8. So this is 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8, 5/8 over here. So I'm going to mark that off here. A 3 and a 2 4/8. So this is 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8. So now we can look at our data from our ruler drop reaction time in terms of inches from 1 inch all the way up to 3 inches. So the second part is what is the distance between the smallest and greatest measurements taken? Well, this makes it really easy for me to see what my smallest measurement is because it's going to be my smallest number. So 1 4/8 is my smallest number, and obviously my largest number is going to be 3. So difference, the distance between them is going to be the difference, which is a subtraction equation. So I need to turn this into 3 minus 1 4/8 is going to equal D for distance. So when I am doing a whole number minus a fraction, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this into 2 8/8 because 8/8 is equal to a whole and 2 is obviously plus the 1 is going to be equal to 3. And I'll show you why I do that in just a moment. Because now I can subtract my whole numbers and my fractions. So 2 minus 1 is going to be equal to 1, and 8 minus 4 is equal to 4. So the distance is going to be 1 4/8 inches. And I'm going to circle it or put a box around it so I know that that's my answer. Number 4, what is the total for all of the measurements gathered in the line plot? So here I've got my 10 points plotted, and I need to add them all up together. So I'm going to create a large addition equation, and I'm just going to start from my smallest point up to my largest point. So I'm going to do 1 4/8 plus 1 6/8 plus, and I know that this is 2 plus 2, which is equal to 4. I'm just going to keep them separate just so you can see. And then 2 1/8 plus 2 1/8 plus 2 4/8 plus 2 5/8 plus 3 is going to be the total measurements. So how I'm going to start this problem is I'm going to add up all of my whole numbers first, then I'll add my numerators and put them all over 8. So here I'm going to have 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15 16 17 18 19 20. So M is going to be equal to 20 wholes, and then I'm going to add up all of my numerators here. 4 plus 6 is 10, plus 1 is 11, plus 1 is 12, plus 4 is going to give me 16, plus 5 is going to give me 21. So it's going to be 20 21/8. Wow. We've talked about this in class. 21/8, that is a nasty, ugly number. We don't want to leave a whole number and a fraction. So I'm going to see how many times 8 can go into 21 without going over. So if I do a small little division equation over here, 8 can go into 21 2 times, because 8 times 2 is 16. And when I subtract 16 from 21, that's going to give me the number 5. So 2 and 5/8 is equal to 21/8. So I'm going to take this number here and this number here and add them together. So the total is going to be equal to 22 and 5/8 for my answer. Now, the last question is going to be depending on your information here, but it says, looking at the data in the line plot, what conclusions can you draw about your reaction time? So I can see that most of my reaction times were either 2 or 2 1/8 because there's 4 points of data all in the same place. Then there's some other dots on the outside of it. So I'm going to put most of the reaction times were at 2 inches or 2 1/8 inches. Because this is where the most of my catches were at. Now you could say something about 3, but the majority of my information is all in this area right here. So that is how you do the independent practice on 8.7.